helping students decrease the cost of textbooks, but we wanted to get more into the influence on how they learn. And from No into Galaxies was really the intersection between the smartphone and the tablet technologies coming in, and my two daughters, who are now 12 and 9, they were entering into elementary. And I was observing how they used to study and what really made them enjoy and have fun with what kind of products. And I was really trying to bring in that when they would ask a question on science, I would go online. I really would have a hard time finding anything that was useful for them or fun for them. So we really wanted to come up with a product which would get kids into science and really help them enjoy the learning experience, and that's the core focus of how we got into Galaxies.
Thank you. David Lord, CEO of Jumpstart Knowledge Adventure. You came, if not most recently, certainly at some point previously in the consumer toy world. So again, we'd love to hear the same, why education came.
Sure. Well, I'll start with why I came to Jumpstart. Because it was back in 2008, it was the impending consumer recession. It was a tough time to go to a consumer company. And I was playing the games and I realized this company has completely missed the online. All there are CDs, and CDs have gone away. But I'm playing the CD, and my daughter, who's a USC Trojan, not a shrinking violet, a basketball player, she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, Jumpstart, that was one of my favorite games." And I thought to myself, okay, there's some real assets here. It's going to take a little while to fix them up and get the company back to its glory days. But, it's a worthwhile endeavor. And before that, so I started out my very first company. I started with one of the .coms back in '96 before you could even get somebody to spend or give you money to run one of those companies. And through the craziness, sold it to Disney. That was all great. And most recently, I was at an event ticketing company. But it was that online ability to go reach customers, segment data. That's really, we took that entire team. And so now Jumpstart is, from the end of CDs, the beginning of online, the beginning of the Wii revolution, the beginning of the mobile revolution to where we are today. Forget mobile or whatever. We're in the interconnected revolution. I have to have my products everywhere, and they can't really be the same thing because every device has a different interface. And it's the next revolution, and it's really the most important one in gaming.
Thank you. And of course, Nolan and Michelle would love, again, we could have a meetup just dedicated to Atari and Chuck E. Cheese, but would love, with Brainrush, why now educational gaming? I don't know to what extent at 2-Bit Circus, I don't know if that goes into educational at all, but...
It's an echo. I have 8 children. Brent, my oldest son, is behind the 2-Bit Circus, which is really important. But essentially, with 8 children, you have a lot of ways to watch education and how kids grow and prosper. And I felt that school, as I saw it, was deficient in almost every way. And you know that the foundation for almost all the world's problems can be traced back to bad education, whether we're talking about kids in prison, adults in prison, whether we're talking about unemployment. I mean, the number of college graduates that are unemployable with $100,000 worth of debt, it points out the criminality. And I believe that education today is a criminal enterprise that's foisted on the young and the foolish to pursue topics and issues that are totally relevant. It's like they haven't heard of the internet, because the things that you needed to know when you were in the 40s and the 50s, you don't need to know them now. You can basically look them up. What you need to be able to do is to process and think and have relevant skills. I mean, the fact that we have any kind of unemployment here, and yet everybody is crying for minimum coding skills, just shows how really problematic. And you say, yeah, but don't you need to know calculus? No, you don't. I actually could do a partial differential equation at one time. I haven't done it once. What a waste of time. And so I just think we need to get relevant. And schools, for one thing, need to go to no grades and no grades. Things shouldn't be, you should either master it or you shouldn't. Gentlemen's C's don't matter if it's an important thing. And trips around the sun are not a way to measure progress. Does it really matter if somebody takes a little bit longer to graduate? Anyway, I started BrainRush to take the best brain science and augment school learning to accelerate it. And our objective is to make learning 10 times faster so that you can spend the rest of the time, because you got to go through the Common Core just because that's the way the game's played today. But I wanted to be able to get them through that so they can actually spend the rest of the time working on stuff that's relevant.
Thank you. As always, certainly tweet-worthy. I was just tweeting out, education is a criminal enterprise. So let's...
That is going to come back to haunt.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't have added you. I should have hashtag. But, well, let's get a little bit more into ed tech before we go broader. When you think about some of the mega trends in education, or some of the hotter aspects of ed tech right now, we were just talking earlier about adaptive learning, or you think about embedded assessments, RTI. Maybe Trip, you could talk a little about how you've literally built assessments into, if you can, assessments that even just in the broader paper world of SEL has held up a lot of academics. I'd love to hear how you design them, how you design that into the gameplay, and then what kind of relevance does that have even outside of the gaming world and just the broader ed tech world?
Yeah, I guess one thing I would point out is that the name of the panel has the word gamification in it. What we're doing is not that. What we're doing is the learnification of games. So when you deal with kids, they're not going to engage and spend time using an app unless it's fun. You can't basically force them to do things. It's got to come from their own motivation, their own volition, and their own desire to pay attention. And of course, that's the marvelous thing we have today, is that kids are giving their attention to computers and devices, and the motivation is to win the game that they're currently playing. So that's where it starts. I believe that has to be the foundation. If we're going to end up really changing education, it has to be based on really great gameplay principles that engage and hold attention and motivate players. So we start with that. In our case, we wanted to bring in pretty good stories. We spent a lot of time on the story, the look and feel of the world, the art direction, the characters. And then you're needing to blend in the curriculum content, which is in the form of lesson plans. And it's got to blend into the gameplay and the activities that the characters are doing in the game. And then you've got to measure whether or not anybody's learning anything from those lesson plans. So that was a really tricky question. We innovated a lot of little detailed techniques, and it ended up working. So we got really positive feedback from kids, both boys and girls, from parents, a lot of special interest groups that include parents that have kids with special needs, and we hear from therapists and doctors and academics about the game. So it's been very highly regarded. So we pulled it off. But it's a little bit like how I did EA Sports. So if you think about a typical game developer, or for that matter, any typical technical creative person that's young and early in their career, they want to do what they want to do. And when we made the first EA Sports games, you had to be a team player And you had to accept the fact that, yeah, we're not going to invent a new game. We're making a simulation of existing game like NFL football. You have to use the NFL plays, and the outcomes have to be statistically correct, and the players have to look right and move correctly. We had a wife of one of the 49ers defensive players come over, and she was in tears because her husband was apoplectic about where we put him on the depth chart. And she was insisting that as fast as the game was showing them. Serious stuff. Anyway, you can make an education game the same way. It's just that the ingredients are different. You know, instead of the NFL playbook, you have a similar 3-ring binder lesson plans. Instead of John Madden, you have these master teachers that have refined and polished these teaching and learning methods over a period of decades. But then you've got to knit it together with the technology guys and the game development guys, and it's all got to kind of play around your characters and story. Assessment, for those of you that might not know that buzzword, it's really the testing. You know, it's some concrete measurement. And what we did is just basically measure every choice that the players made. And it ended up being measured against a full catalog of the 20 most important things that we're trying to teach. In social emotional learning, we were teaching concepts like empathy, or even simple ones like listening. And it's easy to tell if people are listening. You can say something to them like, where are we? And you talk about it, and then later ask them, well, where are you? Either they know or they don't know. That's a very simple example. Of course, sometimes you give them choices, and they could be making a random choice. But if you ask enough, you know, if you give them enough choices, the results aren't going to be random. You can, you know, in our game, you can really pile up thousands of measurements in an hour.
You kind of talked about the learnification of gaming. You know, it's almost like you're embedding the assessment, like, you know, the medicine in a bowl of ice cream or something. David, you mentioned earlier as well with How to Train Your Dragon. You know, you don't even market that on the iPad and the iTunes Store as an educational game. It's ranked and sorted in the general consumer game. Could you talk a little bit about sort of building off that thing, just how you mix educational and assessment in with entertainment and engagement?
Sure. So I think we somewhere along the way, as we built Jumpstart, and we got the new platforms built and launched Math Blaster. So these are 20-year-old legacy brands, great histories, have been the number one. When the mom was making the decision and going to retail, these were the number one products. But now the kids make the decision in all too often a case, right? So search tools and how we appear in the store are way more important than the product itself for initial acceptance. So one of the things we did is a couple of years ago, DreamWorks Animation invested in our company and contributed their brands. So we wanted to get, people had already written great stories and created great characters. We needed those characters, and they believed in education. So where you can find big brands who have that belief, and then they're going to launch a movie that's going to have $150 million marketing, that's great awareness. So we list products in the Apple Store now. School of Dragons is the product around How to Train Your Dragon. It's a science world, and there's no confusing that it's an educational game. You start, first thing you do is you learn the scientific method, and you realize that everything you do in this game is going to be the 7-step scientific method approach. And the kids on the forums are always talking, my hypothesis is this. It's the most unbelievable. We don't have any other game where there's never anyone talking about, oh my God, there's too much math, there's too little math. The teachers, there's never enough. The kids, there's always too much. There's never the right ice cream flavor. So with Dragons, I think we hit it dead right. And after the movie, it slows down a little bit, but still, it's 300,000 kids a day. We haven't marketed $1 on it. So when you start to think about, this is probably the largest science game that's ever been made. And by the time the third movie comes out and the Netflix series, this will have real legs. It's on every device. Our number 3